I love it. I love it. I love it. Look at this. This is the greatest thing I've ever seen.
Hey, I'm not surprised.
What's up, guys? Leighton here for UFC Gambling Addicts, back again for another UFC full card breakdown and prediction video. Now, before we get into this card, if anyone notices that I sound a little bit off, I've been battling the flu for the last few days, coming towards the end of it now, so that's all good. But if I do sound a little bit off to anyone, please bear with me on this one. Literally, like one day before the first UFC event of 2020, I started to come down with a little bit of a flu, started sneezing a lot, coughing a lot, chest felt heavy, and I was like, really? We're going to do this one day before the UFC's back? We've had 4 whole weeks, 4 whole weeks, and we're going to do this right before UFC? So yeah, life has given me a little bit of a, this is life, it's not going to be all perfect, but that's cool. UFC's back, MMA's back. As always, we're going to jump into some comments before we get into this full card breakdown. First, I'd like to start with a huge shout out to a guy named Kirk. He's a part of a MMA betting group on Facebook that I'm in. He sent this picture, plus 1600, Conor McGregor. Had no clue this was on William Hill until he sent me it. Completely loved the odds. And in all honesty, man, that bet right there saved my night. I'm willing to admit it. If that bet doesn't come through, it's a loss, but I'm thankful that bet came through. So a huge shout out to Kirk there. Now moving into some more comments. Cool SP. Even at 170, Conor got a powerful left hand. He dropped Nate twice, and Nate's chin is solid. I think he's going to TKO Cowboy round 1. That's perfect, man. That is beautiful. Lovely, lovely prediction. Drexian Warrior. Conor should get this. Cerrone has more ways to win, but he's getting on and his chin is not looking great. Expecting under 2.5 rounds finish. Similar comment to Cool SP. Yeah, perfect, man. I mean, Donald Cerrone, 36 years old, but in fight terms, man, he's way older. He's a minimum of 40 in fight terms, and Conor came out real quick. Those shoulder strikes, nasty, really nasty, right into the center of the face. Took an effect on Donald real quick. Then with the high kick, Conor couldn't miss. It was beautiful. Now, a few of you guys left comments regarding who Conor was fighting when I done that quote. Now, a lot of you was right, but there's only one man who was right first, and that is Sol Martin. And he literally got it within, I posted the full card breakdown, and he had that comment there within literally under 100 seconds. So, shout out to Sol Martin for being the first guy to get down to the timestamps and get to the main card, the main event, to get my prediction. So shout out to you, Sol Martin. Dylan Morgan. Damn, Donald is 36. I bet that it was over in the second or third. I should have dropped the bag on round 1. Well, hopefully you cashed in the round 2 and the round 3 because it was prior to the event, and then put all the money on round 1. If you didn't, that's fine. Sometimes we make bets that aren't, good bets. But at the same time, if you said to me Donald Cerrone was going to get out of round 1, even though I was taking Conor in round 1, I wouldn't have told you that you was crazy. Donald Cerrone is a veteran. If he made it out of that first, that second, then Donald's gonna start to come into the fight. But man, Conor was real quick, and maybe you should have dropped the bag in round 1, Dylan. Maybe. Let me know in the comments if you did change your bet. And as always, I forgot to put the poll in, which is, this stuff is not in order. But here is the poll. So we had 75% on Conor McGregor, 25% on Donald Cerrone, 380 votes. I'm happy with this poll. I mean, if Donald Cerrone was to get over like 30%, then I'd start to question a few of you. You know, what are you doing? But 25%, it seems normal. You know, there's always going to be at least 10 to 15% picking Donald, because Donald has those fans, man. Donald is a true fighter. He's a veteran. Yeah, 25%, 75%. It seems good. As always, if you don't vote on these community polls, please start voting on them. Go to the community poll right now. Vote on Blaydes or JDS. If you want your say, please vote. Last comment before we speak about more comments later on in the smoke break. JB 1950. Work on pronouncing the letter T.
Yeah, make me.
Okay, let's get into this full card, and we'll pull up some more comments later on in the smoke break. First fight of the night, we have Nate the Train Landwehr versus Herbert Burns, and we're going to start with the newcomer. Wait, both of these guys are newcomers. I don't know what I'm talking about. Nate the Train comes into this fight making his UFC debut. The former 145 champion over in M1. I believe he defended his title 3 times. I could be wrong with that, so let me know in the comments. But I do believe he defended his title a few times. Now, when I've watched this guy, I've watched some tape. I've seen a few of his fights. I kind of see a few characteristics that I would see in Tony Ferguson. Now, when I say that, don't think, okay, so you're saying this guy is Tony Ferguson. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying I see a few similarities, right? And the similarities would be when I watch Nate fight, I feel craziness. I feel wildness. Just unorthodox. Mixes up his attacks really well. He doesn't mind snatching up a neck. He doesn't mind going to the mat. You know, his conditioning looks very decent as well. And when I watch him fight, I just see a guy who he's looking to be himself inside the octagon. You know, he's not fighting with fear. He's going in there. He's mixing it up. He's getting crazy. You know, probably not making the best decision throughout his fights. You know, I do see him get crazy, man. You know, and when you get crazy inside the octagon, you can put yourself in some bad positions. So maybe stylistically this isn't the best fight for him because Herbert Burns has very good jiu-jitsu. But when I watch Nate fight, I basically see a guy who's looking to force a fight. He doesn't mind that it's dirty, and he's looking to make his opponent uncomfortable. Now, the opponent, Herbert Burns, also comes into this fight making his UFC debut by way of the Contender Series. And just like his brother, you know, he's primarily a BJJ practitioner. He wants to be on the mat. He wants to roll with you. You know, he'll most likely pull guard, which is exactly what he done on the Contender Series. He's willing to accept bottom position because he believes in his jiu-jitsu. You know, he knows how good of a BJJ player he is. He's willing to pull guard. You're on top of him and we're going to roll. So that's the matchup we have here. We have like a crazy guy who mixes it up very well, doesn't really mind where the fight goes, against a BJJ practitioner who will look to kickbox on the feet, but, you know, if he had it his way, he wants to be on the mat. So already we're faced with, in my opinion, a tough pick to make because I really like the look of Nate, man. I like the look of this guy. He gets in there. He's crazy. He doesn't mind fighting. You can see that he's a real fighter. He loves to fight. You can see that in his performances against a guy who has a brother who is a very good BJJ player. And if you've been rolling with Burns, your brother, your whole life, you know you're going to be a good BJJ player too. And I feel that when I watch Burns fight. You see it in the Contender Series. His jiu-jitsu looked very good. So really, really tough pick to make this one. But I'm going to take Nate. I'm going to take Nate Landwehr. I just think if he can stuff a couple takedowns or even get back to his feet a couple times and continue a nasty, dirty kickboxing battle, I think that could be enough. Now, if Herbert is able to control him on the mat, and keep the majority of the fight on the mat, then it's going to be that type of story come, if we do reach the judges' scorecards. But I think if Nate can look to avoid takedowns, get back to his feet, and the majority of the fight is a kickboxing battle, I think he has a very good chance of getting a win in his debut. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Nate Landwehr via decision. And we take a look at the odds. Minus 115, minus 110 for Nate. Plus 108 for Herbert, minus 105, minus 110. So we basically have a pick'em. We don't really know which way the underdog is falling. It appears to be falling on Burns' side. But that could change. That could change come fight night. Overall, though, I agree with those odds. I see a contest that, how do you really decide what the story is in this fight? Is it going to be the BJJ of Burns, or is it going to be that crazy, unorthodox style of Nate that we have seen inside the UFC? We've seen it with guys like Tim Elliott, Brandon Moreno, Tony Ferguson. So we don't know what level his unorthodox style is at, but we're going to find out. Fight number 2, we have Brett the Pikey Johns versus Tony Gravely. Another very decent matchup to start this card. So we'll start with the Welshman, Brett Johns. Comes into this fight 3 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Training back in Wales, I believe. And Brett's a Welshman, and that means he's tough as nails. Loves to use his boxing inside the octagon, which you can tell by the ring name, the Pikey. That's what he's looking to do. He's looking to have a scrap with you, man. He comes forward, he shows you how tough he is, and he's looking to scrap. That's basically what Brett is about. Now, it looked pretty good before he fought Aljo and Pedro Munoz. He even got a beautiful calf slicer real quick against Joe Soto. I'm sure a few of you guys remember that one too. Really beautiful quick performance. Now, he did get those 2 losses against Aljo and Pedro, but those are 2 top bantamweights, 2 top 10 guys. So not really much shame in that one for Brett Johns. He has been off for 17 months, I believe, which isn't good for any fighter. I do believe ring rust is a real thing. Some guys can come back after 3 years, Nate Diaz, and look great. Some guys can take 8 months off, and already that's too much. So 17 months off for Brett, it's not looking too good. But yeah, Brett Johns, man, he's tough as nails. He's just looking to walk forward, use his boxing, and that's how he basically wins inside the octagon. The opponent, Tony Gravely, comes into this fight making his UFC debut by way of the Contender Series, 19-5 as a pro, and basically what I've seen from Tony Gravely is this guy is looking to use his power on the feet. He's looking to crack with heavy punches, heavy kicks, and if he can get his opponent backing up, that's when he uses his takedown. He shoots in on you, uses the fence for the takedown too. And then he's looking to use his top control. He's looking to bully you on the mat and beat you in that type of fashion. So, 2, very different styles. Both guys have power, but Tony Gravely's looking to use his power to dictate the pace, then look for a takedown. Brett Johns can grapple very well, so it will be interesting to see who the more dominant fighter is in the clinch. But I think Tony Gravely, man, Tony Gravely has some good momentum so far right now in his MMA career. I believe he's on 7 or 8 fight win streak. And I like his style, man. He has power on the feet, but he's not looking to win that way. He's looking to take you down. Now, Brett Johns isn't exactly the biggest bantamweight, but he's by no means a small bantamweight. And I've seen Tony Gravely fight a guy, I can't remember his name. Let me real quickly check on Tapology. I watched him fight a guy named, I believe, Calla or something like that. Dylan Calla. which was back in 2016. And this Dylan Calla guy was massive, like real big for a bantamweight. And Tony Gravely was still able to dominate this guy on the mat. The only real, the real thing I've noticed from Tony Gravely that I don't like is, although he's looking to take you down, dominate you on the mat, most of the time he is defending submission attempts. You know, and he does seem to do well with avoiding them and getting out of that position, but it does appear that Tony Gravely pretty much all the time is finding himself defending from a submission. So that would be the only worry here. And then you factor in Brett Johns with a beautiful calf slicer. Man, UFC, it's the highest level of MMA. I love breaking down these fights. This is a very good fight. But ultimately, I think the takedown of Tony Gravely will be the deciding factor in this fight. So that's what I'm going to take here. I'm going to take Tony Gravely via decision. And we take a look at some odds on this fight. Brett Johns minus 105, plus 100. Tony Gravely minus 120, minus 125, minus 115. So kind of a little bit similar to the first fight of this card. The odds are basically on a pick'em, very close odds. And I would agree, man, because Brett Johns isn't someone you're just going to walk through. You know, you look at the damage Pedro Munoz done to Brett Johns' calf. You know, so maybe Tony Gravely would do well to invest in some powerful low kicks early to look to dictate the pace on the feet, because Brett Johns will be looking to walk forward. And Tony Gravely seems to do well if he can back his opponent up to get the takedown. So it's going to be very interesting very early in this fight. But Tony Gravely minus 120, I'm willing to take a shot on that one. Sarah McMann versus Lena, Elbow Queen Lansberg. It's a good one. We'll start with Sarah. Sarah comes into this fight, 5 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. Nearly 40 years of age now. She hasn't fought in nearly 2 years. Looking at her career, she's fought mainly top competition inside the UFC, so it's a credit to that. And Sarah's primarily a wrestler. You know, that's her foundation. It's wrestling. She has become a good mixed martial artist over her career, though. She has become a good kickboxer, good submissions, decent fighter, well-rounded, but primarily she's looking to wrestle. Her opponent, Lena Lansberg, comes into this fight 4 wins, 3 losses inside the UFC. Now, this is a woman who, she's been really impressing me. She's been proving me wrong, and she's been impressing me, at least in her last 2 fights. So, taking a look at her last 2 fights, they were against Macy Chiesa and Tonya Evinger. So, yeah, Lena looked, her grappling in those 2 contests looked really good. I mean, against Macy, man, she was able to stop the takedown, even end up on top, and stop Macy from getting up, beating her with elbows. So yeah, Lena really been impressing me recently. And I remember being at one of her fights in London back in 2017, man. She fought Lucy Pudilova. And both of those girls just threw down. Man, they're just looking to beat each other up. And that's exactly the same vibe both of these women have continued ever since that fight. You know, they're scrappers. You know, they're looking to get dirty. They don't mind fighting up against the fence. They don't mind fighting in the middle of the octagon. If you want to go to the mat, we're going to fight there too. Lena is a scrapper, and she's been proving me wrong, man. You know, the fight against Tonya Evinger, beautiful performance. You know, big underdog, I believe. Against Macy Chiesa, beautiful performance, big underdog. So it's fair to say a few of us have been underestimating Lena. You know, her grappling is better than what some of us think. She is very strong for 135. So I'm faced with a woman who's been off the sport for 2 years, Sarah McMann, who's a wrestler, against a woman who's been active. She's been proving me wrong. She's been impressing me. And she's fighting a wrestler. So I can't sit here and say Sarah McMann's going to going to out-wrestle Lena Landsberg. I think Lena has proved to me she is very strong in the clinch. Her elbows, her knees in the clinch, very beautiful. She's experienced on the mat. She's fought very good competition. So yeah, I can't go against Lena in this one. I'm going to be taking the elbow queen. And I'm going to take her... I'm going to take my third decision in a row here. I'm going to take Lena Landsberg via decision. And we take a look at some odds for this third fight. If I can find them, which I never can. Should probably edit this bit out. But I'm not gonna, because I'm gonna find them. Oh, there we go. Sarah McMann, minus 150. Okay, so... yeah, Lena Landsberg. That's my first underdog of this card. Plus 125, plus 130, plus 138 on Sportbet. Yeah, I'm over it, man. She's been active. She's been proving me wrong. She's been impressing me. And I think she has a favourable matchup. You know, she's fought two good grapplers recently in Macy and in Tonya. And I think she's just going to continue the same vibe here. You know, she's going to stuff takedowns. She's going to compete in the clinch up against the fence. She's going to win the stand-up battle, hopefully. So yeah, Lena Landsberg, plus 130. That's my first underdog of the card. Moving into the next fight, we have Montel Quick Jackson versus Felipe Colares. And we'll start with Montel Jackson. This guy comes into this fight 2 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. For those of you who don't know, Montel Jackson was competing in wrestling for the Olympics before the Olympics decided to take away wrestling. After that, Montel Jackson decided to turn his art, transitioned with his art into mixed martial arts. So in other words, Montel Jackson is a very good pure wrestler, for those who don't know. He's very, very long on the feet, very rangy too, so that's always awkward to deal with. I believe his hands are the size of Francis Ngannou's, so yeah, grip strength, you know, 10 out of 10 is an understatement. Montel Jackson is extremely strong. If he gets his hands locked on you, man, you're going for a ride. You're going to be ragdolled if you're not a good wrestler against this guy. And I like what I see so far, man, because we look at a pure wrestler like Ben Askren, right? And we can't disregard what he did prior to the UFC. Obviously, it's not at the highest level. I understand that. But Ben Askren never really became like a strong MMA wrestler, you know? And you saw that a lot against Damian Maia. But Montel Jackson, I feel, is taking a different route, you know? You look at that performance against Brian Kelleher when he caught him on the feet, and then he just I believe he just synced in a DAS or some type of nasty choke real quick. So it's nice to see the evolution of Montel Jackson, you know, being a pure wrestler, transitioning into mixed martial arts. I think he could do very well inside the UFC. And like I said, if you're not a good wrestler, you're going to have a hard time with this guy. And the only guy that has competed so far with Montel Jackson in his 3 UFC fights was Ricky Simone. And Ricky Simone is a good wrestler. So already we can put on a notepad for Montel Jackson. The opponent has to be a good wrestler to win. That's my opinion anyway. And like I said, the reach and the awkwardness of this guy on the feet is a problem, because Brian Kelleher had no clue he was going to get hit with that shot, and that's probably because he didn't think he was in reach of Montel Jackson. So yeah, I like Montel. I think he's a good fighter. I think he could do very well inside the UFC. The opponent, Felipe Colares, comes into this fight 1-1 inside the UFC, training out of Team Nogueira, a black belt in BJJ. Looking back at his most recent fight against Pilate, quite a close fight, kinda. Pilate started really, really slow, which gave Colares a good lead in that fight. Was able to use his grappling in that contest. So we basically have BJJ versus wrestling in this matchup. Now, if you was to ask me who is the stronger guy, I would say it's very clear that it's Montel Jackson. But then BJJ fans could say you don't need to be strong to submit someone, which I completely agree with, especially if you're a black belt. You didn't get your black belt through strength, you got your black belt through technique. That's what BJJ is, you know. You don't need a lot of strength, you need a tight grip and technique to get it done. So wrestling versus jiu-jitsu, I think if the fight's kept on the feet, the awkwardness and the range of Montel Jackson probably wins that type of battle. And I think Montel Jackson could avoid all submissions. I think he's good enough of a grappler. And I think he could even choose, if he wanted to take down Colares. I think he could win the stand-up battle through range. And I think he could even ragdoll Colares to the mat a couple times each round just to score points. So for those reasons, I'm going to stick with Montel Jackson here, and I'm going to take him to get this win via decision. We take a look at some odds, which are absolutely insane, clearly insane. Minus 600 for Montel Jackson. Felipe Colares coming back plus 450, plus 460, plus 490, plus 500. Oh my god. Yeah, obviously we fade that, guys, unless, you know, if you want to play that line, you play Felipe Colares. Maybe if Montel Jackson has like a decent submission price, maybe play that. I don't know. Yeah, Montel Jackson, I'm going to fade. I'm just going to watch this one as a fan. You know, I watch every fight as a fan. I do love to bet on these fights as well, you know. Always brings up the adrenaline when you're watching these beautiful battles. But yeah, this one, no play for me. Moving into the next one, we have Justine Kish versus Lucy Pudilova. Now this is a decent matchup again, man, a tough pick. We're going to start with Justine Kish. She comes into this fight 2 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a Muay Thai fighter. Before entering her MMA career, before entering the UFC, she was 24-2 as a kickboxer. So that's her foundation, you know. It's Muay Thai, that kickboxing style. She loves to use her kicks in her combinations. A large percentage of her output, her damage, comes through kicks. She loves to implement them in her fights. Now, Justine Kish hasn't fought in 2 years. The last time she fought was in North Carolina 2 years ago, and it was against Ji Young Kim. And I kind of felt she got robbed in that fight. Well, I was there, right? So from what I remember, and by the way, this was the first time I physically met my now fiance. So it was like my first date with my partner. So if you're listening to this, Meg, I love you very much. I enjoyed our first date. But back to the fights, right? So from what I remember, the first round, I was very impressed with Justine Kish. The second round, I felt Justine Kish won that round, but it wasn't as clear as the first round. I remember it being, you know, I felt the round was good. I still scored the round for Justine, but I felt Kim, you know, if she could have started the first round like that, it would look a little bit better for her going into the third. That's the feeling I had. And when I watched the third round, and you know, it was even less than the second round for Justine Kish, I felt potentially Kim could have won the third round. But then, you know, I watched it back for the first time on TV this week, or the second time, I believe. And I can't believe the scoring in that fight. How did the third judge have 30-27 for Ji Young Kim? Guys, if you have UFC Fight Pass, if any of you guys have your UFC Fight Pass, obviously a bunch of you do, right? Some of you may not even need to go back and watch the fight, but just let me know in the comments, right? How the hell did that third judge have all 3 rounds for Ji Young Kim? Like, it amazed me. Like, I don't remember feeling sick at the event, but when I rewatched it like a couple days ago, it was wrong, man. That was, man, I can't believe that. So yeah, Justine Kish, I do feel she should have got the nod in that fight. And yeah, she's just a kickboxer, man. She's looking to use her kicks. She isn't the strongest fighter. She isn't the best boxer in the world, but she has got good combinations. The opponent, Lucy Pudilova. comes into this fight 2 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Also a kickboxer inside the octagon, primarily a boxer. You know, she's using her hands quite a lot, but she is a kickboxer, has some good BJJ to fall back on. Not the best BJJ in the world, but you know, not the worst. You know, she has got that BJJ in the locker. One thing I really noticed from Lucy Pudilova that could be a big telling point in this fight, she has very good straight boxing. She loves to fire jabs straight down the pipe. You know, she's very straight with her jabs, and they're quick and consistent, and a lot of them too. She puts a lot of straight jabs out there. And Justine Kish looked to be, you know, kind of getting tagged with a few of those straight punches from Ji Young Kim. And I think Lucy Pudilova's a way better straight puncher, a better boxer, you could say, than Ji Young Kim. So Lucy Pudilova, man, 2-4. The record's not great. I love her mentality and her style inside the octagon. I've always said that Lucy Pudilova is basically the female Nate Diaz of the MMA world for females. You know, she's nasty, man. She looks to come forward. You can hit her with over 100 strikes, but she's not going away. That fight against Irene Aldana was one of the best female fights I've ever seen in my life. Absolutely loved going back and watching that fight again. Just crazy volume from both girls, toughness from both girls. So yeah, this is a tough one to predict, man, because Justine Kish is, as for technique and composure, I think she's better than Lucy there. But Lucy's got that range, man. She's got a good frame for this fight. She is taller and longer than Justine Kish. And if she constantly pops that straight jab out the way Aldana does, even if it's not landing, right? It's making the opponent watch, and it's annoying the opponent, you know. And then it starts to touch your nose, you know, and then the judges start to score that. It's a real tough one. But I'm going to take Lucy Pudilova to save her job in this one. You know, I could be wrong. She could have another 2 or 3 fights on her contract, but 2 wins, 4 losses inside the octagon, potentially fighting for her job. And I think she could potentially save it here, man. So I'm going to take Lucy Pudilova, and I'm going to take another decision on this card. And the odds on this fight are, if I can find them, Lucy Pudilova -160, -170. Justine Kish +155, +145. So that's kind of nice to see that the people who have already bet on this fight, more faith is going into the girl who's, I think, on a 3-fight losing streak. Yeah, so Lucy Pudilova, she's going to have to use that straight boxing. She's going to have to put a lot of punches out there to keep Justine Kish away. And the best way to stop a kicker is to take away the space. And Lucy Pudilova loves to fight. So she's going to stay heavy on Justine Kish to force that fight and take away Justine's qualities, which is composure, space, combinations, kicking. To take that away, she's going to be close to Justine Kish. Now, Justine Kish is going to have to move very well and target an area of the body in Lucy, potentially the calves, to slow her down. So it's a tough one to predict, man, but Lucy Pudilova, I'm willing to bet on her. But at -170, it's only going to be like one parlay there. Moving into the next one, we have Arnold Almighty Allen versus Nick the Carney Lentz. We'll start with the Englishman, Arnold Allen. So Allen comes into this fight 6 wins, 0 losses inside the UFC, training out of TriStar, but originally from Ipswich, England, which is about 30 miles from where I live. Arnold Allen is the type of guy I would rate 7 out of 10, literally anywhere and anywhere the fight goes. He's a solid boxer. He tucks his head very well when the fight's standing. He's a solid kicker. He can grapple, wrestle very well. His conditioning is very good. Literally, Arnold Allen is solid everywhere. He's a 7 out of 10. Maybe after this fight, he could be like an 8 out of 10 everywhere. Because every fight I see from this guy, it is a better performance. You know, you look at his performance against Makwan Amirkhani, and I was at that fight live. very, very good fight. You look at his performance against Melendez, Jordan Rinaldi, even against Mads Bernal. You know, I was at that one live, and he was losing that fight and was still able to turn it around and get a submission win. So Arnold Allen is a guy I feel is underrated, deserves more credit than he's getting. But I understand why his name isn't spoken too much. I understand why he doesn't have hype around him, because he hasn't had that big moment yet. He hasn't had that, wow, look at that for a walk-off. That was a beautiful performance. He hasn't had it. So Arnold Allen is potentially one big performance away from stepping his stock up massively. You know, that's what I feel from Arnold, man. He's underrated. He's very good, very well rounded, and just one fight away from becoming a bigger guy. The opponent, Nick Lentz, comes into this fight 14 wins, 7 losses, and 1 no contest inside the UFC. So evidently a very experienced fighter. Nick has fought a lot of top competition over the years, and I feel, you know, this is a little bit of a mirror match to me. I think both guys mirror each other. You know, Nick can box very well. Nick can kick very well. He can grapple. Nick's going to compete wherever you take him. And I feel the same for Arnold Allen. You know, he's going to compete and show you he's very, very good wherever you take him. Whatever your plan is, Arnold Allen is going to surprise you. You know, he's very good. And I feel the same from Nick Lentz. So in most ways, man, it's hard to decide what is the deciding factor in this fight. What is the real weakness for either guy? Now, I don't really feel a weakness, but if I had to, I'd say the weakness for Arnold Allen is probably killer instinct. You know, hasn't had that big moment, not going in for the kill. But at the same time, you can come back at that and say, well, he's very composed. He has great composure inside the octagon. Would you not rather that than a guy risk it and lose? You know, it's hard to pinpoint a weakness for Arnold Allen, because I'm sure he would say killer instinct to me would not be a weakness. You know, I'm evolving every fight and I'm still getting better. So not really a weakness for Arnold Allen. For Nick Lentz, not really a weakness other than the guy's aging, a few fights potentially catching up to him. Hasn't got time on his side. You know, he's been here for a while. He's fought a lot of top guys. So maybe declining fight by fight now. That would be the weakness for Nick Lentz. So for those reasons, I'm going to take the youth in this one. I'm going to take Arnold Allen, and I'm going to take him to get his big first moment. Although I did predict that against Melendez, I'm going to predict it again. I'm going to take Arnold Allen via TKO in round number 2. And we take a look at some odds in this fight. Arnold Allen minus 300, and I can't argue too much, man. He's a good prospect in the UFC. Nick Lentz, maybe a little overpriced, plus 240. Should it be that high? Probably not. He's got a lot of experience. But yeah, it's a mirror match in most ways. I just think one mirror is going to be a part of the future, and one mirror's on the way out. And that's basically the same thing I said for Cyril Gane and Tanner Boser. Alright, homies, we're going to do a quick little smoke break. For those who love to smoke, I love to smoke. Probably shouldn't be smoking due to being not too well, you know, got the flu and that. Even if it's good smoke, you know, you probably shouldn't fill your lungs with any type of smoke when you're not well, especially when you're not well. Yeah, I'm still gonna though. Let's get into a few comments in this smoke break. Mostly Vinegar Pictures. Hey Leighton, long time watcher, love the insights. I'm all over Dober at these odds. He's looked excellent last 2 fights. He was effing up Darush before he got caught in the sub. Man, I said that during the breakdown too. I hadn't picked against Drew Dober in 6 fights, man. And the first time I picked against him, huge win. Yeah, I completely agree with you, Vinegar, man. I massively agree with you. Even when Drew Dober loses, he looks impressive, right? Like, that guy he's looking better and better and better. And he fought on that North Carolina card, my first date with my now fiance. He fought Frank Camacho. I'm sure a few of you remember that one. You know, I think it was fight of the night too. Just cracking each other, just in the middle of the octagon, back and forth, man. Drew Dober, the guy's a stud. My pet frog made me do it, bro. By the time the smoke break rolled around, I was already 10 bowls deep. Awesome vid as always, bro. UFC is back, baby. Fuck yeah. We'll smoke to that, boys. We'll smoke to that. And girls. Long-time listener of the show, Justin Ivester. I think it's great when you don't check the odds before your breakdown. It gives a great authentic prediction. Keep up the great work, Leighton. Thanks a lot. That means a lot from you, Justin. I know you've been here from when I've had like 200, 300 views. If you go back and check my last Conor McGregor breakdown and prediction video, which would have been against Khabib, if you go check the views on that prediction video and the views I'm getting this day and age, you know, it's only hard work, and Justin's been here from the very start. I absolutely love to break down fights. That's what I love to do, man. It keeps me going. So Justin Ivesa, thank you very much, man. That means a lot from you, bro. And I love to see you in the comments every single week. You've been here for months and months, years, nearly years. So yeah, thanks a lot, mate. Roberto Toe. I like that. I feel like this community will grow a lot this year. And 21 people, well 20 because I liked it. 20 people liked that comment. So that tells me 20 people agree with you. Thank you very much, my man. Thank you. I'm looking to grow the community as much as I can with every video that I bring out, every insight, every breakdown. I even done the edit, the highlight edit on Macy Barber. And if you ask me, you know, now that you know that she lost, would you go back and not do that? Would you pick someone else? My answer to that would be no. Like, I really, really enjoyed doing that video. And hopefully, in years to come, say 5 years from now, 6, 7, 8, even 10 years from now, hopefully I can look back at that video and say that was only one of her losses. You know, Roxanne Modafferi. Obviously, a lot of you guys would agree that Valentina would dominate Macy, and a few of you guys have said that in the comments recently too. I agree with that. But as for editing that video itself and just getting a different type of production, a different type of creation up on my channel, it felt refreshing, and I want to do more of that. You know, I believe Drexian, a guy that I put up on the comments earlier on, he left a comment saying, you know, are you going to do more fighters even though Macy Barber lost? And to answer your question, mate, absolutely, 100%. I loved doing that video, and I'm going to do more. I have really, really cool ideas that I hope you guys think are cool ideas for these edits as well. I believe, I can't grab the comment because you guys left so many comments, but I believe someone by the name of, I believe it's MMA statistics or something like. You know who you are. You left this comment, but you said you loved the edit and you loved the way I incorporated the song into the edit. So that's what I mean by these ideas. I have some good ideas for other fighters too. I'm looking forward to doing that. Man, I need to light this blunt up again. As always, guys, this is my friendly reminder. Make sure you vote on the community poll for Blaydes and JDS. We want to get those votes up and up and up every week, you know, every week. That's showing me progression. Before we got into 2020, we was hitting over 420 votes, 430. So hopefully, soon, we can get those votes to close to 500. Alright, let's get back into this card. Bevan Lewis. I refuse to say his octagon name because it's genuinely one of the worst octagon names I've ever heard. Bevan Lewis versus Daquan, the Tarantula Townsend. We'll start with Bevan Lewis. So Bevan Lewis comes into this fight 0 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC, training out of Jackson Wink MMA. And for those of you who don't know, Bevan Lewis was supposed to be the John Jones prodigy. He's long, he's rangy, he uses his elbows very well up close, uses his kicks, his knees, decent grappling, kinda. But yeah, he was supposed to be the John Jones prodigy. Now, looking at the debut, I took Uriah Hall in the debut, but it was a very decent performance, a really, really impressive performance from Bevan Lewis. For 10 minutes, he looked very, very good, man. Dominating the fight, dictating the pace, looking dangerous, having real poise to his game. You know, he was looking like the John Jones prodigy. Uriah Hall caught him, and then Bevan Lewis fought Darren Stewart, where you could see, man, completely different guy from the debut. You know, Bevan Lewis backed up continuously in that fight. He was controlled against the fence from Darren Stewart. He looked scared, man. He looked scared, and you can understand why. You know, for 10 minutes, you're having the best performance of your life. You're living up to expectation. You're fighting the best guy you've ever fought, and you're looking great. You know, the dreams are becoming real. And then you get caught out of nowhere. You know, that's got to mess you up. And we saw that against Darren Stewart. He was a completely different fighter. So for me, the question is, how good of a camp is Jackson Wink? How have they helped him overcome this mental issue from the debut? That's what I'm looking for here with Bevan Lewis, because his technique and his ability and his tools, we saw for 10 minutes, they are effective. But it just, has he overcome that loss? We're going to find out. The opponent, Daquan Townsend, 0-1 inside the UFC. He fought outside of his weight class in his debut against a guy in Dolce who is a very explosive guy, big power. Daquan Townsend, he's one of these guys who, he's just looking to catch you with his power. He has decent power. At 205, he looked very quick. I can remember Mike Bisping basically screaming from a jab, which was hilarious. But I kind of understand the way he screamed, man. It was a lightning quick jab at 205. But at 185, he's not going to be that quick, man. He's going to look to be the counter puncher still. And that power could be enough. And potentially, the mindset of Bevan Lewis could still be wrong. So it's a real tough one for me to predict, and I'm sure a lot of you are thinking the same thing. You know, is Bevan Lewis going to dictate the pace, or is he going to be the guy backing up? Townsend is the counter puncher, so maybe he's the one backing up. He's the guy looking to stand his ground but not really dictate the movement. Bevan Lewis is going to have to invest in low kicks, maybe even look for a takedown against Daquan. It's a real tough one, man. You have to guess. You know, is Bevan Lewis going to be the guy from the debut or the guy against Darren Stewart? It's the hardest thing, man. But you can't fade these fights. You have to make predictions. And I'm going to stick with Bevan Lewis. And I'm going to take him via decision. And we take a look at some odds for this fight. If I can find them. Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Minus 400 for Bevan Lewis. Daquan Townsend, plus 320, plus 300. Yeah, that's insane. For me, I have to fade that. There's no way I can play that line. Maybe if Bevan Lewis TKO is like a really decent price, I may take that. But I mainly see Bevan Lewis winning over a 15-minute period and not getting caught. It's a tough one, man, but minus 400 is insane, man. Moving into the next one, we have Jamal Sweet Dreams Hill versus Darko Stosic. We'll start with the newcomer, Jamal Hill. Comes into this fight making his UFC debut by way of the Contender Series. Prior to the Contender Series, had a very good performance against Daquan Townsend, which is on YouTube. You can check that fight out. 25-minute performance, looked very good in that fight. I believe he got dropped at one point, or maybe a couple times in that fight, and was still able to win that fight. Looked very good. So conditioning, absolutely no question with Jamal Hill. You know, conditioning is very good. Already gone 25 minutes. On the Contender Series, had a very, very decent performance against a German guy by the name of Alexander Popek. Was able to get that fight done via elbows from the mount. So conditioning looks good. His top control looks very good on the mat. He moves very well. Very, very good power in his punches. He can crack real hard on the feet. Jamal Hill, I'm liking what I see from this guy. The opponent, Darko Stosic, comes into this fight 1 win, 2 losses inside the UFC. I was at his debut in Germany, which was against Jeremy Kimball. Jeremy just looked horrible in that fight. Darko was able to hit him a couple times on the feet. Eventually, I think Jeremy shot him with a weird kind of takedown, and Darko kind of glanced with a heavy strike, and Jeremy fell onto his back. Darko got on top and just ground and pounded him. Since that debut, Darko has been exposed. You know, you look at the fight against Devin Clark and the most recent one against Kennedy. His conditioning, man. If you can get out the first round against this power puncher, you can really dictate where the fight goes. You know, his conditioning doesn't look good enough. And that's because of the loose, powerful strikes that he throws. I believe his foundation, Darko, is actually judo. So you can see, you know, the technique isn't too right with his punches. You know, he's just throwing his weight. He's just throwing his power. And it worked against Jeremy Kimball. But against Devin Clark and Kennedy, it didn't work. Those loose, powerful strikes fatigued him. And that's when he was basically exposed. You know, conditioning not great. And you can understand why. The strike isn't right. It's just power. And he's missing a lot. So, yeah, decent matchup. I think Jamal Hill, with the breakdown I gave him, basically answers everything I need to be answered in this matchup. I think he has good technique. I think he has good conditioning. I think he can take the fight to the mat. For this debut, I like this fight for Jamal. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Jamal Hill via TKO in round number 2. And we take a look at some odds. Darko Stosic plus 105, plus 110, plus 118. Jamal Hill minus 130, minus 120. Yeah, it's kind of close. I can understand why. Jamal Hill hasn't had many fights in MMA, but from what I'm seeing, I'm liking. Yeah, fought Daquan Townsend, very, very good performance. Fought on the Contender Series, very good. And I think the blueprint has already been written on Darko. So unless he's tuned up his technique with the strikes, I think Jamal Hill can run away with this fight, potentially get a finish. And at minus 130, I'm willing to play that in a couple parlays. Hannah Shockwave Cifers versus Angela Overkill Hill. We'll start with the hometown girl, Hannah Cifers. She comes into this fight 2 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. Fighting out of Embrace Martial Arts, which is a camp in North Carolina, I believe. Hannah is primarily a Muay Thai fighter. She has pretty okay power. Looks to use her kicks with her boxing inside the octagon. Completely destroyed by Macy Barber. But since then, she's had a couple decent performances, got a couple wins in the UFC. As much as it hurts me, I do want to mention that if Hannah Cifers would have lost to Polly Viana, I would have won over £20,000 on a full card parlay. As much as that hurts me, I'm just going to put that out there right now. That was the first fight of the night. I got a loss, and from that fight onwards, I won every single fight. So if Hannah Cifers was somehow the main event and I could hedge, oh man. The opponent, Angela Overkill Hill, comes into this fight 5 wins, 7 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a kickboxer inside the octagon. Maybe more of a boxer, but she does throw a few knees, a few kicks out there. Her output is very, very good. That's how Angela Hill wins her fights. She's looking to outwork you with her boxing, with her kicks. She's going first and third, you know. She's always looking to work, man. Even when she slows down, she's looking to work. Now, the record isn't great, right? 5 wins, 7 losses. She has had some trouble grappling with some girls inside the UFC. But if you look at who she's fought, man, she's fought mainly top competition in the UFC. So even with those 7 losses, man, Angela Hill is getting better. The grappling is getting better. She lost to Yan, but if you can remember in the first round, Angela Hill was close to getting a triangle choke in that fight. So the grappling is improving. She's never going to be the strongest female fighter. You know, she's not going to ragdoll girls, but as for technique, getting back to her feet, getting to full guard and that kind of stuff, she is improving there. Now, if this fight stays on the feet, it's already a decent matchup, but I think Angela Hill, her ability to outwork the opponent, overwhelm the opponent from the first second to the 5th minute of that first round, just that output, first and third, you know, that style I think can beat Hannah Cifers. I think Hannah Cifers would be wise to shoot for a takedown or 2 in this matchup. Because if it stays on the feet, I do expect Angela to outwork Hannah Cifers. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Angela Hill via decision. And we get some odds on that fight. Angela Hill, -160, -170. Hannah Cifers, +135, +140, +150. Yeah, I agree with it. I mean, I feel this matchup is a tough one for Hannah. She has a good boxer, man, against her, Angela Hill. She may not be as powerful. She may not hit as hard as Hannah Cifers, but if Hannah Cifers throws 10 or 15 strikes, Angela Hill's probably thrown 30 or 40. So, yeah, Angela Hill, I feel this is a good matchup for her to maybe get that record looking a little better. 5 and 7, not the best. Understandable, though. Great competition she's fought. And she mainly loses to that higher level of competition, and I don't know if Hannah Cifers is that. So I would expect Angela Hill to outwork Hannah Cifers here, and at -160, it's probably worth 1 or 2 parlays from me at least. Moving into the next one, we have Jordan Espinosa versus Alex Perez. Very, very competitive matchup here. We'll start with Jordan Espinosa. Comes into this fight 1 win, 1 loss inside the UFC. Looking back at his debut, rewatching that debut, very impressive performance. Looked very quick in that fight, circled the octagon very well, fought at his pace, displayed a beautiful low calf kick. Looked good, man. Looked really good in the debut. Rewatching his most recent performance against Matt Chanel, that was, you know, a disappointing show. And that's because Matt Chanel got in there and he fought at his pace. You know, he didn't get in there and say, okay, Jordan, you're going to circle, you're going to kick when you want to kick, you're going to move when you want to move. All of that, you know, Matt Chanel wasn't about that. Matt Chanel dictated the pace. He made Jordan uncomfortable. He forced him to box when he wasn't ready to box. And Jordan shot real quick. And Matt locked up a triangle. So, yeah, although I do expect to see Jordan Espinosa replicate his debut, I do expect to see him do that in the UFC a few times. I don't know if he's going to be able to do it here. Because Alex Perez, right, comes into this fight 4 wins, 1 loss inside the UFC. And this guy's a nasty striker. Has very good power for the 125 division. I'm sure a lot of you remember the performance against Jose Torres. If you have Fight Pass, once again, if you haven't seen that fight, go and watch that. Alex Perez versus Torres. Perez threw a lot of strikes in a very short amount of time, and just an amazing performance. And the only guy Perez has lost to, which is Joey Benavidez. You know, and I believe he lost twice in one fight. If anyone can remember that one, it's funny. But yeah, Perez, man, he's a nasty striker. He's the type of guy where, say Jordan Espinosa lands that low calf kick. Perez is the type of guy where I'm going to get that low kick back. Like, he's like a Lucy Pudilova. Like, if whatever you get me with, I'm going to get you with too. And mine's going to be nastier. and it's going to make you think twice about hitting me with that again. You know, that's the type of guy Alex Perez is. So if he's able to, if Perez is able to get in there and fight his fight, look to make it dirty, look to make Jordan, you know, look, you're going to sit down your punches, we're going to go, and we're going to see who the nastier guy is. I think Perez is that nastier guy. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Alex Perez via TKO in round number 1. And we take a look at some odds for that fight. Alex Perez, oh man, minus 250, minus 260, minus, man, no, that's a little too much. Jordan Espinosa, plus 200, plus 210, plus 220. Yeah, that's a little too high. I think he's been underestimated a little bit from his last fight. Although my prediction was Alex Perez TKO round 1. Jordan moves well, man. And if Alex isn't pushing a pace the way Matt Chanel did, then it could be a very close fight. But Perez is that nasty type of guy where if Jordan kicks and runs, Perez is going to come for him, you know, and that's what I'm going to expect to see from Alex Perez. Maybe one parlay if I'm feeling it come fight night, because it's a little deep for Alex Perez, but I'm going to stick with him. Co-main event, RDA versus Michael the Maverick Chiesa. What a matchup this is. We'll start with the veteran RDA. He comes into this fight 18 wins, 10 losses inside the UFC. The former 155 champion, a veteran of the game, 4 wins, 3 losses since he stepped up to welterweight, 170. Only losing to title contenders and now champion Kamaru Usman. So what can we say about RDA, man? He's fought the who's who. You know, he's fought everyone. You look at the last 20 fights in the UFC, man, and you're going to be impressed with RDA. He ain't taking easy fights. He's a legend. He's a true fighter. He's a veteran, a striker, a black belt. But, you know, he's looking to stand with you, man. He ain't looking to sub you. He's looking to use his striking. The opponent, Michael Chiesa, comes into this fight 9 wins, 4 losses inside the UFC. Primarily a BJJ practitioner. Used to be a 155er, just like RDA. But he has also stepped up to welterweight. Now you look at his fights at welterweight. Carlos Condit, really impressive performance, man. Left Condit wrapped up, just tangled from that Kimura. The way that fight ends, man. How far Carlos Condit's arm is extended backwards, man. Just so unnatural, just dirty. Beautiful performance from Mike Chiesa. Then you look at the performance against Diego Sanchez. Chiesa, you know, trying for the submission, was able to just win through takedowns. So already, I'm sure all of us could pretty much agree. We see both the paths for both these guys. RDA is the better striker. He's the more experienced guy. He will look to piece up Michael Chiesa on the feet, go to the calf. He's going to rip to the body. He's going to go high with powerful punches. And that's how RDA is going to win this fight. Now for Mike Chiesa, the way he's going to win this fight, he has to get a takedown. He has to have a strong start in that first round. If he can't get the takedown in round 1, I don't see it getting any better for Mike, man. He has to have a strong start. Look to mount RDA in the first round or take his back. Either one, he has to get a takedown, have a strong start and win that first round. It's a tough matchup to make a prediction because Mike Chiesa looks really strong at 170. Like really strong. But RDA has only lost to real top competition at 170. And I don't know if Mike Chiesa is top competition at 170. It's something you have to predict before you see it. That's the beauty of predicting fights. Now, I'm not saying Mike Chiesa is going to be a champion, but I do think this is a winnable fight for him. I think he can get that takedown in the first round and then potentially kick on from there. Look to do the same thing over second or maybe sneak the same game plan from round 1 into round 3 and look to survive in round 2. I see a close battle, man. But Mike Chiesa, I think, is strong enough at 170 to get this fight to the mat, control RDA. A little bit similar to the way Usman and Colby did. I know Chiesa isn't anywhere near the wrestler of those two guys, but he is a big frame and he's very strong. If he can get that body lock, I think he can keep RDA on the mat. So for those reasons, I'm going to take Michael Chiesa via decision. And we take a look at some odds. Man, plus 220, plus 240 for Chiesa. A lot of people doubting him then. Man, I can understand RDA being the favourite. You know, he's a legend. He's a striker. Has very good jiu-jitsu. Very decent takedown defence against Kevin Lee. You know, Kevin Lee trying for the single. And RDA was defending with that Kimura grip. But yeah, Mike Chiesa, man, he has a strong task ahead of him here. He has to get that takedown in the first round. And at plus 220, I'm willing to ride with Mike. Main event time. Just a quick reminder, if you haven't voted on the community post for Blaydes versus JDS, go and have your say now. Main event, Curtis Razor Blaydes versus JDS. We're going to start with Curtis. He comes into this fight 7 wins, 2 losses inside the UFC. Training out of Elevation Fight Team. Curtis Blaydes is primarily a wrestler and a very, very good one too. Extremely relentless wrestling. Very, very strong and powerful top control. Powerful, vicious ground and pound. Loves to favour positional fighting a lot. You know, and that's what makes him such a dominant wrestler. You know, he's not looking to just take you down. Right now you're down, I'm going to hit you. He's always looking to secure the position, to wrap the legs up. He holds the wrist so you can't get up, so you can't turn. If you are turning, he always takes the back, takes his hands around your waist, gets those hands together, and that's when you go for a ride again. You know, if you get back up and he takes your back, you're going for a ride. His entries are very, very quick. They're very powerful. You know, it's hard to argue against Curtis Blaydes being the best wrestler in the heavyweight division. I know a few of you guys are going to say DC, but DC has done pretty much all of his work at light heavyweight. So I want to give Curtis Blaydes the respect and say he is the best wrestler in this division. You know, powerful entries. And I love the fact that he favours the position over submission or over you getting up. You know, if he can stop you getting up just with leaving the strikes for 30 seconds, 40 seconds to secure the position more, it favours him in the long run. You know, he's always willing to put his wrestling first. Now, I can remember him fighting Mark Hunt, and for some reason, Curtis just wasn't shooting. You know, he just wasn't shooting. And if you've been a long time listener of this show, one thing that really annoys me with fighting is when guys are doing what got them to the dance, you know, and then when they get to the dance and they don't do that anymore, that irritates me. You know, Gregor Gillespie didn't really look to take down Kevin Lee. Prior to Kevin Lee, he took down everyone. So now why would you stop? So with Curtis Blaydes, he didn't really look to take down Mark Hunt too much. You know, he took him down, Hunt got back to his feet, and Curtis didn't try again until he got rocked. He got rocked badly by Mark Hunt, and then he got the takedown. And I think from that moment onwards, Curtis Blaydes has realised even more, yep, I'm a wrestler. I knew I was a wrestler before, but I know now again, to be a champion, I have to be a wrestler all the time. Even when it doesn't favour me, even when guys are hard to take down, I need to take them down. And that's what we're seeing from Curtis Blaydes against Overeem. You know, a couple big punches against the cage, but then looks for the takedown, instantly shoots in, uses defence against Overeem, against Justin Willis. A little bit boring from Curtis Blaydes in that fight, but the way he hung on Justin Willis up against the fence, you know, real wrestling technique that is, you know, real wrestling mentality. If you're going to stand up, you're not just going to stand up with 250 pounds of your weight. You're going to stand up with 500 pounds because I'm going to be backpacking you, you know, and that takes it out of you. Against Shamil, really dominant. If it's not one takedown, it's the second takedown. Curtis Blaydes has become better and better and better every fight. He's only lost to one guy, and he's lost twice to him, and it's understandable. Francis Ngannou is a complete beast. Now, the only way you can beat Curtis Blaydes is if you can keep the fight standing, or if you can catch him coming in. It's the only way you can beat Curtis Blaydes, is from what I'm seeing. The opponent, JDS, comes into this fight 15 wins, 5 losses inside the UFC. The former heavyweight champion, primarily a boxer inside the octagon. He's looking to catch you with his hands, you know. Looking back at the last 2 years of JDS inside the octagon, he's done very well. You know, good 25-minute performance against Blagoy. You know, basically a conditioning test for JDS, and looked very good. Found a nice counter punch against Tai Tuivasa, got that done. Was able to avoid the power of Derek Lewis and get that fight finished too. Then he ran into the beast Francis Ngannou, completely understandable. So here we have Curtis Blaydes, one of the best wrestlers in the division, against a guy who used to be a champion, a guy who's been in a lot of wars, and a guy who will be looking to keep this fight on the feet. Now, JDS does have very decent takedown defense, but Curtis Blaydes is one of the best wrestlers in the division. He's very quick on those entries, and they're powerful. So if Curtis Blaydes shoots early and often, I do expect him to win in a similar fashion to the way he has been winning, and that's ground and pound or a dominant wrestling performance. So for JDS to win, he has to simply keep Curtis on the feet, and if he does, I think he will catch Curtis Blaydes. Although Curtis is a powerful puncher on the feet, it doesn't matter. What's going to make Curtis a champion is his wrestling, and the moment Mark Hunt cracked him, I think he knew that. And since then, we've just seen Curtis relentless, more relentless with the wrestling, even when it doesn't work. And a guy like Francis Ngannou can catch you. Hey, that's fine by me. But as long as you're trying to be champion, as long as you're sticking to what makes Curtis Blaydes the best Curtis Blaydes inside the octagon, I'm happy with that. So if JDS can catch him with an uppercut or a knee, or keep it on the feet and TKO Curtis, I'm happy to accept that loss. But I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes. I think he's a very good wrestler. I think he can get the fight to the mat and finish JDS. So I'm going to take Curtis Blaydes via TKO in round number 2. And we take a look at some odds for the main event. Curtis Blaydes minus 250, JDS plus 200. Yep, I completely agree with it. Can JDS win this fight? Yes. Am I going to predict that? No. I think he has to have very good timing and a lot of confidence to time that punch that's going to stop the entry. You know, I don't see it. Not in 2020. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm right. We're going to find out. That's the love of the sport. I love this game. I love all of these fights. Leave your comments down below who you're taking in the main event, your underdogs, all of that good stuff. Let's get engaging. Sweet.